Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the King Island Council Ordinary Council meeting for the month of July 2024. For the record, today's date is Tuesday, the 30th of July 2024. I call the meeting to order and declare the meeting open at 4:02 p.m. By my watch. Usual housekeeping applies. Just please ensure your mobile phones are turned off or put on silent so we are not disrupted. Item 1, as always, is qualified advice. Pursuant to Section 65 of the Local Government Act of the State of Tasmania 1993, qualified advice has been received to fully prepare the agenda for this afternoon. Item 2, attendance and apologies. As always, I welcome all councillors and staff in attendance today. We have no councillor apologies. We have one pending leave of absence. Taking those into consideration, confirming our quorum numbers for this evening. We have 8 of 9 councillors, so we certainly have a quorum and we are good to transact council business. King Island Council staff are here as required. Do we need to do any comms checks? No? All here in person tonight? Excellent. All right. Staff apologies. Paul, I'm aware of?
Yeah, that's all.
Is an apology. He's the only one. Okay, and Marty's back. Excellent. All right. Media attendance. Proceedings tonight are being recorded as per normal business. Public attendance. On behalf of King Island Council, I welcome all interested constituents here this afternoon and also those who will subsequently listen to the recording of this afternoon's proceedings. Opening statement. Would everyone please stand? Councillors, to begin this meeting, I ask you to stand in silence to pray or reflect on our responsibilities to the people of King Island. We begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Thank you. Please resume your seats. Item 3 is presentations. There are nil presentations. Item 4, public question time. As I always say, if a constituent physically here in our gallery wishes to ask a question without notice, we will permit a maximum of 15 minutes maximum question time. Faye, you have a question?
Yes.
Chair recognises Faye. Go on.
I would like to know that in 2025, does the council have a plan in place, or is the council planning to have a plan in place for the building of 5 George Street, Curry, which is now the Curdo building?
We'll take that question partially on notice. We are intending to replace the roof of the Curdo building to give that building another life of type extension. We at this point in time consider to continue using that as a council building for a range of services. Mm-hmm. We know there is other work that needs to be done on that building. We've budgeted, and we'll confirm what we've budgeted and allocated. But roof replacement remains the main priority as far as I recollect. I think there was also some access and egress issues that needed to be fixed up, some plumbing and some electrical safety issues that we'd committed to undertake, given the Curdo building is a council facility, and we want to keep it up and running for the foreseeable future. And we may need the Curdo building ourselves for spillover council office accommodation because we have our own shortage of office accommodation. Okay. So there are our rough plans at this stage. But anything else we've missed, we'll take it on notice and we'll get back to you.
Yeah,
okay. Giovanni, okay, excellent. All right. We'll move on from item 4 to item 5. Item 5 is declaration of interests. Received one already from Councillor Laidler. That's noted. Are there any more for the ordinary agenda this afternoon? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 6. Questions on notice. There are nil. Item 7, questions without notice. Does any councillor have a question they wish to ask without notice? All right, there being no questions without notice, we'll move on to item 8. Item 8 is motions on notice or motions with notice for consideration. The motion submitted tonight for consideration by Councillor Allen is regarding the ablution container positioning and a rethink. Councillor Allen, at your discretion to move your motion as put up in the agenda.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the motions that are on page 13 of the agenda.
All right, thank you, Councillor Allen. Do I have a seconder for this motion on notice? Councillor Healy?
Yes, I'll second it to get some
All right, so Councillor Allen has moved. Councillor Healy has seconded. Thank you. Councillor Allen, you may talk to the motion.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's interesting when I sat down to write this paper because I sort of in a little bit of turmoil with it, and I'd never written motions of rescission before in council, and what my fear was that when I wrote them, and this is probably draft number 10 of it, was that I was fearful that the way I'd put it would be criticising the work the councillors had made previously. And I was fearful that the motions would be read as also criticising the work of the staff. So I was really careful, and if it does come across that you see it as a criticism at all, please accept my apologies, because it's not intended that way. And the other thing I was a little bit fearful of as well was that it would come over as a criticism of the General Manager, because one of the motions we're rescinding is giving authority for the General Manager to go ahead with this project. So I just want to assure you before we start that that's not the intention of these motions whatsoever. The other thing that I was in a bit of a turmoil while I got up to about draft number 10 is that I had a bit of cognitive dissonance, which means there's one part of my brain telling me that hurry up and get things done, because that's like the way I like to approach things, and I love to see the council sort of get projects happening. But then the other part of my brain that was in turmoil was like, are we approaching this with a high level of detail, and have we looked at every option? So when I land here, I do this, and I put these motions to you sort of quite tentatively, but I just start with that sort of long little speech because I just want you to understand that what the intentions of these motions are. For people who are listening on the podcast, or for the members of the public here today, the motions are about, there was a decision made back in, I think, April the 16th, that made a decision about siting a thing called the ablutions container, which was a container that was bought several years ago to be sited down at Grassy. But, for one reason or another, decisions get changed, and this decision has been changed once before, so it's not down at Grassy. And there was an earlier decision made to put it between the Curry Oval and put the courts, but as things panned out, it's looking like it was going to be placed right next to the current building, the canteen building there at the football ground. Where my motions come for the bit of interest, and it's not actually questioning any of the good advice we've had about the merits of putting the container particularly there, and it's not questioning how well the Football Association could use that particular facility. What it's asking you to consider is just to delay this one little bit until we get a piece of information that would be, have we looked at all the other possibilities and all the other needs around our community at the moment? And the couple that I identified we're looking at putting a toilet block down at Memorial Park, hoping to get that going soon, but there were concerns about the cost of that. So why I mentioned the concerns about the cost of that, it's just saying that we will worry about the cost of that because we know that this council is not flush with money. Managing budgets is going to be our ongoing challenge. So that was a bit of information that in my brain I would like to know and consider. And after I've considered it, if down at the football oval was the best spot for it, then I know that is definitely the best spot for that. The other piece of information that I was really keen to consider is that for, and especially members of the community, to know that we're hopefully be sooner rather than later that we'll actually be renovating some of the current Curry courts, the netball and tennis courts. And the bit of information that I'd be interested to know is, could an ablutions container in that area be of benefit to the people over there? Would it fulfil a need? Would it? And what are the pros and cons of that? And there's always a chance that after that bit of information I'd have, and then I might even land and say, look here, honestly, when I've considered all the information for netball courts, versus down towards at the Memorial Park or at the Oval, we could well land back at the Oval being the best place. But if we landed back at that point, then we know we've considered all the possibilities and we've considered all the priorities, and we've had a look and we know whether we could afford to also do the other projects as well. So we know the full budget implications. So I know it's asking you to do something we normally don't do, which is take a backward step for this, but I'm hoping that you'll support these motions. And it's just asking for a little bit more time to get that information together, so we know for sure that we're making the best decision on this particular project, and also we know for sure that we can afford all the other projects that we're hoping to deliver for the community as well.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. I just highlight that it's always at the discretion or it's always at the purview of any councillor to submit a motion or put up a motion to overturn a previous council decision. Obviously, it's something that's done very, very rarely because most of us are involved in the decision-making process. For this particular decision that Councillor Allen has put his motion up, he was absent from that ordinary council meeting, so I can understand his concerns and sentiments. However, I just want to highlight that the matter was decided unanimously by those councillors who made up the quorum on the 16th of April. I personally still believe it was the correct decision, and I'll be voting against this motion for the reasons I'm about to illustrate here. A decision was made at the 16th of April Ordinary Council meeting with a bias for action to deploy the ablution container where it could be put into service immediately. Mindful that it has been sitting at our tip for 2 years now, corroding and deteriorating, we want to see that asset put into service as soon as possible in a location it can be immediately used. So we considered the Curry Oval. We consulted the King Island Football Association, who suggested an alternate position to what we originally thought might work. It's still a workable position. It meets all of our positioning requirements. It meets all of our requirements for disabled access. We can deliver that ablution container, install it and have it up and running within weeks to be able to be involved in or to be able to be used for the remainder of the football season and the football finals. I also highlight that the Curry Oval has now had its lights grant approved for new LED lights to be installed after the football season. That will allow us to use the Curry Oval for more sports, for more night activities, for perhaps night markets, for perhaps concerts, who knows in the future, with very, very good quality bright lighting that we'd never had available to us on King Island before. So that will only see the Curry Oval complex, initially the oval area, used more often and want to be used for more things, which is what the council wants to encourage and wants to see. So therefore the ablution block will again hopefully receive more and immediate use from that. The other thing I'll highlight also is that the tennis courts and netball courts across the road adjacent to the Will Stelmaker complex, we want to get those courts refurbished within the confines of our available grant budget and re-fenced, and we want to get that work done first. And then once that's done, we obviously want to then take on the challenge of refurbishing the Will Stelmaker complex. But we can't afford to do the Will Stelmaker complex this financial year. We haven't budgeted for it. We obviously are focusing on doing and delivering and project managing improvement of the courts first. So I think delivering this ablution block to where we want to deliver it is the 80% solution that is delivered immediately and put into service immediately for the benefit of King Island and for the immediate or long overdue perhaps return of our investment for this ablution container. So I'm for the original decision that we made unanimously at the 16th of April council meeting. I think it's the right decision. I think that decision still stands, and I'll be voting against this motion for that reason. Any other councillor like to contribute to debate? Councillor Cook?
Yeah, I want to see the thing go into service as soon as possible also. But there is one thing, when this ablutions block was purchased, it was purchased to be able to be transportable, even though it hasn't got a receptive tank for holding stuff. But I think we should set the thing up and look at the possibility of installing manifolds somewhere out at the racecourse, maybe down at Fockey, so that when an ablution block is needed for a short period at other sites, it can be picked up and transported to that site and used for the season there, so that giving us more utilisation of the block. So basically that's supporting both you and Ian, because it's looking at other sites and still getting it to work at the carryover.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Allen, you have a right to reply if you wish to exercise it.
Oh, at the very end, if no one else is...
Yeah, you can hold off and close at the end. That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Councillor Oden.
I'm not a keen footballer, or I'm not going to play netball, so it doesn't personally interest me a whole lot. But I was reflecting on it too, and I like a lot of your points here. I think they're very positive suggestions, particularly with regard to contacting the Netball Association to just see what they do require. But the point that became paramount in my mind was the point that the General Manager raised, that there's a requirement for us to have access to, for the public, for a disabled toilet in a ready location. And I think that's absolutely paramount. That's a legal requirement, as I understand it, and I don't see how we can continue to skate around that. But having said that, I think that seeking an assessment of the Wilf Stellmaker facility, as Ian has suggested, is well worth doing, so that we can get some guidance as to what further requirements for toileting there may be. We do have portable toilets. Perhaps if there's a real requirement down there, they can be used as a stopgap if real needs are identified that won't be accessible to the users when we put it where the General Manager has suggested, which is close to the existing facility. That's the way I look at it. I think we need to put it where we originally decided, in that motion you mentioned, because of the need for meeting requirement for legal compliance.
Thank you. Councillor Wood. Deputy Mayor.
We need to disable the toilet there at the football ground. And not only that, we need showers for girls. There's more and more girls playing in the under-16 competition because they've got nowhere to shower, or really nowhere to shower. They can change some mood, but they haven't got anywhere to shower.
Yeah.
And there is toilets and showers in the old Wilf Stellmaker building.
Right.
There's toilets there, 2 toilets, so they could be used to stopgap that.
Can I make just a comment?
General Manager.
Just through the Mayor. Councillor, there's nothing stopping the Council independently having an assessment of the other pavilion, the Wilf Stellmaker, in terms of even next year's budget, or should other funds become available during the year. So in a sense they're mutually exclusive. We could still progress looking at that facility in terms of the cost while placing the ablution block at Curry Oval, if that makes sense to you. They're not mutually exclusive actions.
Has any other organisation other than the King Island Football Association approached us with an interest in the ablution block?
Not to my knowledge. Just to point out, and the Deputy General Manager is saying no as well, but I wasn't here when it first went to Council,
okay.
but not to my knowledge, and the Deputy General Manager is confirming that.
And I might add that
Deputy Mayor.
I believe there's funding through Woolworths, something Go-Getter or something for up to 200,000 for buildings for sporting organisations. Something to do with netball, I was told, so we need to check that out anyway.
And look, with this, we've discussed before the transportability of this ablution container. If we envisage where we envisage putting it to the east of the clubhouse at the Curry Oval complex, if down the track after a trial period we determine that isn't the best position for the ablution container, then there's no reason why we can't relocate it. It will sit on concrete plinths, as I understand. It will be plumbed in and powered in. But otherwise, it could still be considered transportable if a little while down the track a better location or a better home it became apparent for it.
I might add it's about time we did something because it's $90,000 sitting at the tip going backwards past.
Right. Any further debate then from councillors? Councillor Allen, back to you to close.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to comment on a couple of things, and Councillor Philby, I think Councillor Cook mentioned the urgency. These motions don't propose to put it in the old holding pattern. The idea is just another piece of work, another little bit of information, and time-wise, I'm not. This is not a delaying tactic. This is just a thorough decision-making process that we go through. I know it frustrates people, and I've talked to many members of the community who get frustrated with council, like, for heaven's sake, can't you get on and make a decision? And I routinely speak to them and saying, look here, we're duty bound to just look at all the information and just go about it thoroughly. It's a good project management approach. The community consultation is a good approach. A lot of time it is a matter of elimination, and then we can sleep well at night and say, if netballers came up and said to us, oh God, we could have really used that. We said no. We talked to you. We got the information. We consulted with you, but the 9 councillors sat around a table, and this is the decision we came to. So we've considered everything. So we've gone out of our way, and we've actively engaged with these people. There's one thing to put it up on Facebook or put it up in the newspaper and expect people to come to us. There are times that we just need to jump on the phone or just knock on the door and engage with the people and ask them direct questions to get that information. The bit about the disabled toilet, I'm totally with you. Dearie me, I've transported people around on the island on tours that have mobility challenges, and I usually start with an apology for the place. It is not an easy place to get round if you've got mobility challenges. So I'm all for. I went for a run this morning, went past the Oval, and I actually stopped off in the toilet. There is a disabled sign on the current brick toilet at the building. So if it's not up to up to standard at the Oval, if it's not disabled compliant, I want to know why, and why in the hell the sign's there, and why hasn't something been done about it? Right? I think that's shoddy. That building's been there for ages. I went in there, I'm not exactly sure what should be compliant. That should be done regardless of whether we put a container down there or not. That stuff should be addressed. And if that's done up, then if someone's over there at the tennis courts or parked in that area, then they can also access it. Also, that toilet is 24-hour a day accessible. I'm not sure if this container is going to be wide open or not. I hope it is accessible to people. The bit about the change rooms, I'm all for King Island getting with the modern times, making sure we've got unisex change rooms around the place. I also want to see that when netball gets up and going down at the courts, they have something a little bit better than currently what the shoebox they have at the moment to get changed in. I managed to get a key and went in there the other day. You might get one person to get changed in there and the door opens straight out to the communal areas. There is no privacy basically, and there's windows that if you go past these windows basically get head height, and people walk past and look straight into the change rooms there. Right? It's not a modern change room, right? And it's far worse off at the moment than what's down there at the football change rooms. I would love to see that updated in both. But, if we go ahead and put that container down there at the Oval, then I think we're going to be prepared to dip into the piggy bank and spend some real money down there at the tennis courts, not just a coat of paint and a bit of a tart up. Right? It needs serious money spent down there. Right? And to give the netballers and the tennis players and futsal players, if we get that court, give them something that's modern. Right? It doesn't have to have the same floor space that the Football Association has, and doesn't have to have the same number of shower heads, but give them something a little bit better than what currently there at the moment. Councillor Cook, I really think that the bit about having this thing transportable is a great idea, and that gets back to the original reason why we decided to go down this track, right, to have this transportable. So if these motions get up or they are defeated when we vote very soon, I'm more than happy to move a motion that will just say that we will install installation points around our community in the spots where this container can be relocated. I think that's a really good, sound use of our resources. I've got one other thing down here at the moment. Mayor, I agree it's great having the lighting down there at the Oval. Yeah, if we do happen to get more people down at the Oval, great, but we have got many other different areas around our community, and it'd be great if it happens, but I don't know of any sort of community events that are crying out for those areas at the moment. So, yeah, I think that's covered all my list of little bits and pieces around here. Thanks, councillors. But just to sum up, really, these motions of rescission, they are not criticism at all about anyone's good work, and it is not a delaying tactic. It's basically getting more information so we are assured this will land in the right place. And also the last bit too, I won't add anyway because I've forgotten where I wrote it. All right, thanks, councillors.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Just before I call for a vote on this motion, I'll just remind you that we are voting on all the recommendations that are listed on page 13, 1 and 2. They're also backed up on the screen here. So we're voting for that in its entirety. And also, importantly, under Local Government Meeting Regulations 2015, to overturn or rescind a recent decision of council requires an absolute majority. So for this a motion to be successful, it will need 5+ votes. So just consider that as to how you cast your vote. So bear that in mind. All right. So I'll now call for a vote on the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you. All those against the motion? Got the numbers there, Leah? All right. Thank you. The motion is defeated. Over the page to item 9, confirmation of the previous minutes. The previous minutes from our ordinary council meeting last month, Tuesday the 18th of June, they've been distributed and made available. If councillors are happy, would somebody like to move that we receive and accept those previous minutes? Councillor Healy has moved. Deputy Mayor has seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Carried unanimously. Over the page, or across the page, item 10.1, Mayor's Diary for June last month. I have no particular wave tops or things I want to mention specifically tonight, but happy to answer any questions from councillors about another busy month that was June. Councillor Labour.
What was your feeling in regards to the Tasmanian Planning Commission hearings?
We are yet to receive the final report from the Tasmanian Planning Commission. I sat through all the representations over. It was spread over 3 days in the end. I'm interested to see what direction we're given by the Tasmanian Planning Commission. To my pleasant surprise, the Tasmanian Planning Commission seemed quite receptive to some development ideas that would significantly increase our population and that would possibly free up development restrictions that have existed in the past. So that could be opportunity for us, but we'll have to get their recommendations and we'll have to get their report back before we work on how we can do that and move forward. But certainly most of the representations that were submitted against our local provision schedule were all very keen and eager to develop King Island, which was very reassuring. As Mayor, that was great to see. We're all wanting to develop King Island in one way or another, and therefore the balance and the challenge for us is trying to find the right way to do that, to provide the development freedoms and options for landowners on King Island to do what they'd like to do, to increase our population and develop the island, but obviously also still to protect the natural abundance that we have here. So more will follow, and no doubt we'll have a decent deep dive into it ourselves as councillors when we get the Planning Commission report back, and we're given direction on where we go from here. Deputy Mayor?
I'll move, yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor has moved. I have a seconder. Councillor Laidler has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Over the page, item 11.1, the operations report for June. Just mindful that the Works Manager is not with us tonight. First and foremost, I'd like to give the Works crew a great well done. The Grassy Oval complex has obviously reopened and that's been a considerable success in recent months, as has the completion of footpaths on both sides of the Grassy main street, which is perhaps long overdue. Finally, Grassy has a high street or a main street, which hopefully will encourage more people to stop and visit Grassy, more pedestrians to get out, and it will hopefully bring some small business and a bit of vitality back to the Grassy main street with that specky view overlooking Bass Strait. So well done to the Works crew for doing those projects recently, and we're able to do those very complete those relatively quickly once they committed to those tasks. Any questions then relating to capital works, gentlemen?
No, just waste.
You're good?
Sorry,
okay.
Get your waste.
Councillor Allen?
Thanks, Mayor. I've got a question about Grassy Oval Canteen. I understand there was a delay getting the canteen finished, and there was some uncertainty about whether the complete job was done and who would pay for what. Has that been resolved?
The manager might comment on that.
It has been resolved. Great difficulty. There was some miscommunication about who would pay for things like the what do you call it? That fat thing that sucks the
Rangewood.
the rangewood.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was outside of the scope of the project.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we did an assessment of everything that was delivered within the scope of the project, and we managed to close off the project and acquit the funding.
Fantastic.
And we haven't had any adverse feedback since. We've written back to Kiefer on behalf of all key stakeholders, and nothing's come back, so they seem to be satisfied that the project, although it took a long time and was way over budget in the end, was finished to their satisfaction.
And it is signed off compliant, got its certificate on the wall.
Got its certificate.
Fantastic.
Everything's in place, working.
Excellent. It's been something I've been looking forward to for a considerable period of time to hear that project is finished. Fantastic.
I know also that Grassy has its next home game this coming Saturday.
Fantastic.
Councillor Wade?
Just on that subject, can I ask for a clarification of who's managing the canteen and who's going to be doing the ongoing maintenance and whose umbrella does it come under?
I imagine the Grassy Football Association would be the host of the canteen, and they man it each weekend or whenever they use it.
I imagine also, we mentioned this before, we as a council, if there's any new identified shortcomings, having used the Oval a few times now and run everything in, so to speak, if there's a few shortcomings on things they need for that complex, I'm sure we'll look favourably upon it with our community assistance sponsorship funding that we've still got available to us for the remainder of this financial year. Just moving on, I'll highlight the waste data. The waste data there listed on pages 19 and 20 was a source of considerable discussion at the Waste Working Group last week. We're not happy with the fidelity of that data, and with the new Mandalay system, we're hopeful to get better and more useful graphs. You'll see on page 19, it looks like the waste in 2023 was 5 times more than the current waste for the last financial year, which we know isn't correct, and so there's an anomaly there that we need to sort out. So we've identified a task to improve and provide council meetings with better data, especially from this new Mandalay system, which should be able to give us more accuracy and more fidelity than we've had in the past.
I wasn't at the waste management meeting because of planes and trains and automobiles. This Mandalay system, is it a computerised system, is it? Or what's the story there?
It's software, and it's a new system we've just received funding for recently, haven't we?
Yes, it's spread across all councils across Tasmania now, and it basically collects the electronic or digital data, puts it into a system that is accessible to all councils. So from our point of view, it's used at Charles Street. So at the moment it's counting like cars, skip bins, bootloads, trailers, all that kind of thing. What it isn't doing, I don't think at the moment, is counting the tonnage. So that's where we've got an anomaly, and that's where we're trying to figure out how do we measure the tonnage? Because in the past we've taken a truck to Grassy, put it over the weighbridge, but that was only done a couple of times to gather data. I understand that we collect the number of times the bin is emptied, a 240 litre bin, but there's no way of telling what the volume of that bin is. It could be full, it could be a quarter full, it could be practically empty. But one bin is equal to so many units, which equals a tonne. So that's why it's what we call garbage in, garbage out. So the data is a bit rubbery at the moment, so we're looking at that and how we can get better data.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Allen, yes.
Mayor, just a follow-up question for that. And so this data that we have questions about, is that used to calculate our payment for the waste levy to the state government?
I believe so, yes. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So we get the levy back for Perina and Charles Street. Whatever we put in, we get it back. But at this stage, I don't believe there's any robust way of collecting the actual tonnage without putting it across a weighbridge, which is probably an hour's effort. So it's uneconomic at the moment.
But yes, that has a direct and critically important connection to obviously levy charges and levy funding. So it's something that we need to watch carefully, and I know we'll keep a close eye on that at the Waste Working Group next time around. Any further questions then relating to this report? Would somebody like to move the operations report for June be received and noted? Councillor Cook has moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowden has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Across the page, item 11.2, airport report for June. Colin has reformatted this in line with our strategic plan, key objectives or dot points, which is definitely helps us. So thank you, Colin. We've hit our winter lull, as we can see there, by aircraft movements, which we typically expect this time of the year. Winter weather is playing its usual tricks as well. I note that the airside doors that were causing everyone considerable trouble there for a while have been replaced and fixed, so that's good. Obviously they just malfunctioned and were reticent to open.
Yeah, we've redone the security system there, so it's helped us to do a complete refresh on not only the operation of the doors, but also to make sure that all of the operators that we've got coming through have gone through the induction process and all the rest of it as part of that refresh. So it's been a really good exercise, man.
Okay. Any questions related to the airport report? Councillor Bailey?
Yes, so the work with the airlines to develop a disability access plan for the airport, has that brought up anything of interest or concern? Or?
It's in draft at the moment. I've sent it through to the airlines for comment. They've given me a couple of interesting points that they've fed back to me in regards to assistance pets and for gaining assistance early on, so making sure that there's the airlines are notified in advance to be able to help cater for anyone with a disability. I've got another person in the disability industry at the moment looking through the document, so I'm hoping to get that finalised fairly soon.
That no doubt is particularly prevalent for PTAS movement. People going back for certain PTAS scans or specialist treatment will use that, I imagine, quite regularly. Councillor Labour.
Sorry, and just a further point, just really pleased to see the herbarium at the airport, and I know that it has already had some, there's been discussion around that and our endemic plants and species, so it's really great to see that out there.
I note also our discussion last week, our very productive discussion about renaming the bowling terminal properly and doing that work, which is in progress at the moment. So excellent. That's glad to hear that's happening. Any further questions then from councillors? Councillor Allen?
Yes, please, Mayor. Page 22, the aviation destination prospectus is something that interests me. So that comes out soon and we'll get a bit of a look at it.
Yes, we've got a concept plan of that at the moment. There's some work we're doing with marketing at the moment, and we've put that on hold until we've made sure that both of those projects are aligning. So yes, we're hoping to have that, well, not hoping, we'll definitely have that completed before we get into the next golf season.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, no further questions. Deputy Mayor has moved. We received the report. Councillor Layla has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Over the page, item 11.3, the CCTV proposal for the airport and the CBD. Recently workshopped, we've discussed this amongst ourselves, obviously with issues and concerns. As we've seen in other state local government jurisdictions around Tasmania, this issue has been a bit of a sleeping giant. Some councils acted on this perhaps quicker than they should, and they received a large backlash from their constituents. So the work our council has done so far, I just want to point out that the work our council has done so far as community consultation with this has been good, and we commend them for it, and nothing we will decide tonight distracts from the great work they've done. But this issue has been a sleeping giant, and as a result of that, additional community consultation is something that I know we talked about in last week's workshop. Councillor Healy, did you have a...
I did indeed. We're all really interested in this. Our volume of feedback hasn't covered the gamut of the island, and I'd actually like to move a motion that we defer this agenda item for a final decision at the end of August. We will be in a much better position to make a decision about public open spaces versus the airport versus positioning at the airport. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and I think it's premature to accept the motion as written, which is delineating exactly where they're going to be without further minds on the job.
All right, thank you, Councillor Healy. We'll just confirm your motion before we call for a seconder, that this agenda item be deferred until the August Ordinary Council meeting next month?
Yes, and having a workshop, having been workshopped in the interim.
Allowing a workshop and more discussion and more community consultation in between. I just remind the date for our council meeting in August has escaped me.
24th, I believe.
Anyway, we'll just say the scheduled ordinary council meeting in August.
You can just lay on the table, open-ended.
Yeah. But that will allow us at least 2 workshops in the meantime and another month for community consultation.
And the reason I think there's an actual date is because we need to accept the grant funding within a timely manner. So that's kind of...
all right, so that's the amended motion put up by Councillor Healy. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Allen has seconded. Thank you. Councillor Healy, at your discretion to say anything else you'd like to say before we go to a vote on this deferment.
No, I think I said it. That's fine.
All right, so we'll put this to the vote. Just a reminder: this agenda item in entirety be deferred for decision by council at the ordinary council meeting in August, and everything else as we've discussed. All right, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Get those numbers, Leah? Thank you. The motion is carried. 7-1 by me.
I think there were 2.
7-2? 7-2? We'll just confirm the numbers just to allow you to catch up.
2 against.
6-2? Okay.
Yeah.
So Councillor Philby and Councillor Cook were against, and the rest of us were for.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just let you quickly catch up, Leah, and then we'll move on to the next item. All right, so that item is deferred for council decision to next month as discussed. I'll move on to the next agenda item is on page 30. Item 12.1, the Growth and Strategy Report for June. Some of these items were discussed at our workshop last week.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, by all means.
All items there. There's item 3, 4, 12, the last dot point. It doesn't appear as if everything's in my book. It says meet with Lime Intelligence regarding, and then there's nothing else.
Yeah.
And then there's also, you've got 3, 4, 12, and then you go to 3, 4, 7, 3, 4, 6.
Okay, so the numbering there is a bit jumbled.
So we're missing bits and pieces? Or?
Yes, I'm ever so sorry. So that item, the dot point on 3.4.12 is met with Lime Intelligence regarding the aviation destination prospectus. I've just managed to ignore those 4 words and left you guessing. In response to the comment about the order of the numbering, if you see that, so for example on that item, 3.46, 3.411 and 3.412 all relate to tourism.
Yep.
So rather than try and put a comment underneath each bullet point and then either repeat it, I've gathered together the points that are on a similar topic.
And they're items from our strategic plan that are currently being worked on.
Yes.
And staff resources are currently being applied to.
Yeah.
And that's not all of them, but it's probably most of them.
So I think everything that's in the economic development section, which is 3.4, is referenced in this report, or should be. And I will double check that with reference to the Lime Intelligence dot point.
Councillor Label.
Yes, Helen, I used to do this quite regularly, and it's to make sure people are reading your paperwork. But just want to add that on 3.4.4, the last point, Small Business Month. King Island Regional Development Organisation has a great involvement in that. Are they still being involved in that project?
Absolutely, they will be. I think in the past, the King Island Regional Development Organisation has been involved through their subcommittee, the Chamber of Commerce. So it wasn't designed to be a particular exclusion of Curdo. It was more pulling out their subcommittee that's more business focused.
All right, so any more discussion then on questions related to the Growth and Strategy Report? If not, would somebody like to move acceptance of the report? So Councillor Layla has moved, Councillor Healy has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Over the page, item 13.1, the King Island Hub Report. Mindful that we're discussing a part of this tonight in the confidential section as well. Any questions? Councillor Allen, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Question about the last paragraph on page 32, just mentioning the time frame is shifted back slightly. I'm just interested in how slightly.
So the latest update I received was middle of last week, which was that the CLT structure, that's the cross-laminated timber, is due to be delivered to the island in the second week by the second week of October.
Okay, yeah.
That's about 4 weeks after we had scheduled to have the CLT delivered.
Yep.
Our builder is very passionate that he is going to meet the original delivery schedule.
Yeah, right.
I applaud his optimism.
Yeah, right.
So a slight delay of about 4 weeks at this time.
Yeah, that's reality.
And just a subsequent question then on the laying of the slab. We have indicative dates for laying of the slab?
So the slab will go down at some point between now and the second week of October. We're really looking for the best weather that we can for that. There's no detriment to the site by not having the slab there earlier. And it's probably better for the slab to not be there for too long before we have the structure up around it. So, and obviously, as councillors would know, this week was not the week to pour the slab, which was originally scheduled. So yeah, we're just keeping an eye on the weather and we'll make that happen at the most opportune time.
All right, understood. And there's a hub meeting hub meeting coming up this week.
Committee will know that
Okay, all right.
next week.
Okay, all right. All right, any more questions then or discussions? Somebody like to move that the hub report be received and noted? Councillor Cook has moved. A seconder. Councillor Green has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Over the page, item 13.2, the Curry Courts update. I don't think there's been any change from what we've discussed recently at workshop or the past meeting. We're still awaiting the redefined grant proposal to be approved, correct? So it all hinges on that at the moment. Any further questions or discussions related to that? The indicative budget we were going for on that again, was it $500,000 thereabouts?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That was our what we thought could be the most ambitious outcome to refurbish all the courts and fencing. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, realistic too. Absolutely.
I'll move the report.
All right, Deputy Mayor has moved. I have a seconder. Councillor Cook has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.1, General Manager's Report for June. Always at the discretion for the General Manager to highlight anything or plug anything that she wishes to at her discretion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just make a comment in relation to the Child and Youth Safe Organisation. So that's on page 36. We did meet with the Office of the Independent Regulator, and of course they held public sessions with the community as well. And this is a change of legislation. It's very important legislation. Council has an advocacy role and one of support for the community, because it is very important that all community groups can adhere to the legislation. So certainly our manager's working with the community groups in relation to this particular item. So just to make mention of that, and I think that was all, but I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the items.
We discussed most other things currently in play at our big workshop last week. So
just one more thing, if you wouldn't mind,
sure.
It was the Mayor and Deputy Mayor and myself met with the newly appointed CEO from Bass Island Line, and that was a fruitful discussion. I think she's very keen to make changes, and that was a very open and fruitful discussion, because freight is such an issue for our community. So that was a very productive meeting. That's all.
Indeed. Any other questions then related to the report through to page 40? And no further discussion. I'll call for someone to move acceptance of the report. Deputy Mayor has moved. I have seconded. Councillor Laidlaw seconded. All those in favour? Councillor Bowden, with us? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.2, across the page, our workshop held last week. We've had one workshop back after our winter recess. It was a big one last Tuesday night, including a visitor, which was nice to have Miriam Beswick, MP, the relatively new state MP for the Jackie Lambie Network. She came over last week and spent a few days on King Island walking the ground here. It's a bit of time with us, understanding our issues, which is good to see. Otherwise, we covered all those other interests in our workshop last week. Anything to add, GM?
No.
Somebody like to move that we accept? Councillor Healy has moved. A seconder. Councillor Cook has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3, information report for June. I'd start off and just highlight something I noticed. The rezoning of the 2 hectares adjacent to the airport has been approved by the Planning Commission, I take it. So that development, we know it's not competing with our airport. We know it's going to complement our airport complex, so it's great to see that that rezoning has been approved by the Planning Commission, and that development will go ahead in the future. So the owner and the investors in that, we wish that undertaking all the best. So that's a little bit of good news hidden in there in the fine print. We've got a long list of procurements. Any questions or discussion relating to our procurements list? All right, we'll continue to move on into the actions list, starting on page 46 and moving down. A couple of them are greyed out, just What does the greyed out ones mean specifically?
The ones that are just shaded for councillor information are ones where we're waiting for someone else to get back to us, usually the state government or some aspect of the state government. So we can't really move until we get a response. So that's what the grey shading is for.
Okay. And we're continuing to strike these off.
Yes.
Once they're completed.
Yes.
In their entirety, we remove them from the list. Councillor Allen?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. There used to be a councillor called Councillor Cooper, and he used to ask a question all the time about the sundry debtors, and it used to be a motif through council. Every meeting he'd ask a question about sundry debtors, and we were always ready for it. So I'm going to start my motif about the Memorial Park. So every meeting, you probably heard me too much. What I'm interested in knowing, and I do understand the delays and complexities with getting various government departments to sign over land to the council, but I'm interested to know if an option is to get a permit for those other projects in the park, such as the shelter and the toilet, that we can go ahead prior to the final sign over of the titles. Is it possible to get the same type of permit to get those pieces of work done as we also got to do the skate bowl? Is that an option? It may be an onerous option, but is that an option?
Through the Mayor, I'll take that on notice. My understanding is that it's not advisable from a technical or legal perspective, but our staff member down the end might like to comment on that, Robin, if you wouldn't mind.
So this conversation I had with Primary Services were that they weren't keen to issue any permits until we had agreement from all parties.
But yeah, even though they are not likely to, it may be an option considering the delays that could be open to us, even though there is a bit of pushback. It could be open to us.
Through the Mayor, I need to take further advice because it sounds like to me that we're not going to get a permit through that avenue.
Never say never.
That's why I say.
Okay.
But yeah, that work is long overdue. We are eager to see it completed, and that park, very popular park as we know, brought to full fruition on the back of the recent skate park completion. Yeah, I know we staunchly support that work being done, and hopefully, and this is a fervent hope, that these state government departments will get their ducks lined up. And
when we finally get a result, perhaps you could hit the state government for the funding lost because the costs have gone up so much.
Yeah, indeed, something we'll consider.
But we'll certainly, through the Mayor, we'll certainly get back to Council with an updated information.
Yeah.
And rest assured, the moment next time any responsible minister comes across and visits us, like Minister Ellis and or others, it will continue to be item number one.
Well, but look, disappointingly, we've had those promises before, and the promises, like either they're inept or they're promises they actually can't deliver. It beats me why they actually promise this stuff when they're not prepared to do the hard work and actually make it happen. Give us a permit, it's just admin, red tape, just say, here's a permit, you can do it. It may be unconventional, we'll knock it together, and then you just worry about where the bloody lines in the map are and who owns what. But just build it so people can just go and use it. It will make no difference to anyone. In fact, it will benefit the community. Like, this is red tape gone mad.
Yeah, it's fair criticism. We certainly support that if that can be done.
Oh, and I'll say it to the minister's faces, for heaven's sake.
Councillor.
And I could certainly, from my recollection, there was a commitment made from the certain ministers to expedite this process. I can't recollect whose name it was under, but
It's a Tony Abbott non-core promise, isn't it? What was his words? This is a non-core promise. Oh, come on.
If only we could compulsorily acquire it or use resumption or something. Well, you never know. All right, we'll continue to work our way through the actions list. There's a few other ones that are still in play that are topical. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, page 51, item 54-24.
Yeah.
Notice of motion, Snodgrass Park application for assistance. I must have missed something because it says here it's completed, but has it been presented to the budget workshop? Or?
Yes, through the Mayor. It was presented to the budget workshop with the caveat that should the independent, I'll get the words incorrect, should the person who's providing some complementary funding come through, that Council would reconsider its contribution to that project. So it's on hold until that comes through in terms of an independent assistance contributor. And we're hopeful that through the Mayor that comes to fruition.
Councillor Allen.
Yeah, thanks, Bear. I promise not to be so cranky this time. Page, here we go. Page 50. It's the one that's got my name on it, and it's the question I asked about details in the service request part of the report. I can't recollect discussing this at the workshop, I'm afraid, and I definitely can't recollect what the resolution with it's got completed next to it. I can't quite work out what the solution was.
Yeah, good question. I haven't noticed any changes in the current format that's in this month's agenda.
I'll have to take that on notice. I wasn't here in April, so I'll go back and have a look.
We
might put that back into being in progress, I think.
Our sentiment was that we just wanted a bit more of a breakdown of priority order and a bit more technical information about the service request. We don't need names named or anything like that, or privacy concerns or those issues. But if a service request has been put in for the blind corner up where the Anglican Church is, we like to know that that's what it is, not just a number, and we don't know what the technical aspect or what the issue is and what priority it's under and what's been done about it, the status of it, as an example.
Okay.
As it stands, we can't see what we need to follow up on. And we don't need names, but at least if we have, the items listed, then we can say, well, why hasn't that one been done? Or is there a reason why this one hasn't been completed? And I note that there's about 33 or 34 outstanding items. So I'd just be interested to find out, why they haven't been done, or is there something technical happening that we're not aware of? Because people come to us in good faith, and I myself have put in service requests on behalf of other people in the past, and it's nice to just go back to them and say, well, look, for whatever reason, it's not going to be done now, but it will be done at a certain time, because this doesn't tell us that information.
And if acceptable, it may not be appropriate to put it in the agenda, but if acceptable, for us as a council is to have a link where we can go and interrogate and just check on the status of service requests when constituents approach us, just so we know where they're at.
We'll have a look at that.
If it's possible, if it's acceptable. Not micromanaging council staff or anything like that, but we're asked quite regularly about especially high priority service requests, utilities and safety and other things. And at this point in time, we don't have a point of reference to go to just see where they are in the system without annoying council staff. Councillor Allen?
Look, if you don't mind, I just add one thing. I originally brought that one up is because when the old system, when there's a little bit more detail, it actually engendered more faith within the community in the system. So community members would come up to us and say, "Can you fix this?" And would say, "No, we can't, because that's not our role." But put a service request in, and then they'd say, "I've got it," it'd just get lost in the system, and would say, "No, lodge a service request. It is part of what happens in the council, and we can watch it from that. We can watch it from there. If we're concerned that nothing's happened, then we can ask and get an explanation of why there's been a delay or why something hasn't happened. So it actually fosters more faith within the community and the system, and it enables us to encourage community members to go about their concerns in the right way.
Councillor Lover.
I notice on page 57, Gina's request around the advocate for the interim paramedic. I thought somewhere we'd also we're looking at advocating for a base for the ambulance volunteers as well. As an interim base, and instead of waiting for the new facility to be built in, whenever. Yes, I thought at the same time.
Unless we had achieved that through recent work in conjunction with the police and others, we'd achieved what we thought was an acceptable temporary solution that was within our control, and so we probably just removed it, considered it completed on our part, and removed it for that reason. But certainly, as far as building the $5 million new station and getting permanent paramedics and whatever else, we know that's one of our biggest priorities for the island, and we'll be piling on that until it's delivered, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Through you,
Councillor Lowe.
Yeah. So is the interim measure in that case? Our volunteers were happy with that.
I'll go through you to Deputy GM.
I believe they are. The issue was that the police had stopped them using the facility, but the police only use that particular facility if there's relief staff in. So if there's no relief staff in, they're more than happy for our volunteers to use that facility, and they were quite happy with that outcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, there appears to have been some positive developments in recent months, and thanks in particular to the Sergeant Nick, who seems to have resolved that situation under his own initiative and benevolence. What was I going to mention? Right, any other further questions then relating to the actions list? We'll just work our way through the actions list through to page 63. No further questions on the actions list. Councillor Bowden, did you have one?
I've got a small one, I hope it's a small one, in regard to the new section of the skate park. The surface on the concrete's been finished off on the quite steep surface with a steel trowel, or so it appears to me. And it's a glassy surface. You've got the slightest film of rain on it, and there's zero traction. So I just went down there supervising young grandchildren, and I noticed they weren't going anywhere near the new section. I sort of quizzed them. I said, why don't you use the new part? And that's the reason, and it really is glassy. And young Oscar showed me where on the older sections there's way more grip on the surface than what there is in the new section, which has been, if you like, not really fit for purpose, and it's been over finished, and it provides a surface with no effective grip at all, particularly if you get a slight shower of rain, so it could cause injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it may well be fair criticism, but the company that built it for us is an expert in the sport, aren't they? And maybe it's a case of the cement is smooth initially until it's rubbered in, so to speak, and receives a bit of activity, and then eventually gains more grip. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the matter, but if it is a safety issue at the moment, and council needs to consider that, then that's a point well made. But I don't know enough about or anything about skateboarding, other than what I've watched on the Olympic Games in the last few days. But it may well be an issue, and something that the direct group may keep an eye on as well.
Have a look.
All right, so we'll just move on then to service requests. We've mentioned that anyway. 7 for June. Our monthly average is typically about 20, so that's below average. But I know the council staff have also been a bit more prescriptive in what we do and don't accept service requests for now. And obviously we're not reticent to accept a service request for something that we are not responsible for, and there's not a LGA responsibility. So we've been a bit more focused on that as well.
If it's not in our remit, Are we getting back to people and saying that's not in our remit? Great.
The backlog has also reduced there. You can see it's down to 30 now too. They're being cleared. But again, as we mentioned before, it'd be nice just to have a little bit more technical information about what specific technical service requests remain in the system that are high priority, and what their status is and what their likely completion is. Councillor Allen.
Can I just ask a question, just following up from what Councillor Healy says? So if there's a service request that comes in to do with a road hazard on a state growth road, and that's rung into council because the person is not aware that it's a state growth road, they just see a road, there's a local government authority that they call it in, are they likely to get a reply, no, it's a state growth road, and then just ring up the call centre and report that in, or does the council take on that responsibility, try to rectify the program, or contact state growth for action to happen? So if there's a jurisdiction thing and it's an imminent safety thing, is the onus put back onto the person who reported, or is there some responsibility taken?
Yeah, that's a good question. Given the criticality of our state growth main arteries.
Ms Martin might like to comment on how we manage that.
Thank you. I will take that on notice. I assume that we would definitely lodge that in our service request, and then when we've contacted the state growth to say that there's an issue on their road, that once that's been finalised, we would then close that up. But I will take that on notice and double check that.
Yeah, please double check it. Look, and I say, I'm sorry to ask a loaded question. I called one in. It was to do with the problem on a state growth road. I was told it's state growth, and then the onus was put on me to ring state growth, which I did, and then state growth told me it was Taswater. All right. So that's okay. I'm determined enough to go round the call centres and spend my day doing that. All right. And I jumped up and down, and eventually something got done. But meanwhile, the hazard still existed. There was no warning sign put on the hazard on that state growth road.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair concern. A lot of subsequent work that may end up being done on the state growth corridors may be subject to us as a council to do anyway.
I don't mind doing it, but practically speaking, I don't know if that would be, world's best practice.
Us to bring up state road.
Sorry,
we talk about that.
Yeah, it's obviously we do most of state growth's work for them on the roads network here, but not all of it. But yeah, it's given the safety, and concern relating to our main transport arteries, then maybe it's a service request that we should own until it's resolved one way or another, given the criticality of it. All right, take that one on notice. Any further questions then related to service requests? Councillor Healy's back with us. All right, would somebody like to move for the recommendation on page 65, the information report for June be received? Councillor Laidler has moved. Councillor Cook has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Over the page, item 14.4, the Deputy General Manager's report for June. Through the GM, at the discretion of the Deputy General Manager, if he wishes to plug anything or hit any wave tops.
Thank you, Mayor. Take the report as read, and also thank the Council for the opportunity to attend the Local Government Association annual conference. It was very thought-provoking and a great professional development opportunity, so thank you for that.
Thanks also for writing up a summary of the main takeaways from that. You saved myself and the Deputy Mayor that task, and we're grateful to you for it.
I concur. It's really nice to get feedback from what we learn when we go away. It was, fabulous. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marty. It was very interesting reading.
All right, no further questions. Somebody like to move the Deputy General Manager's report be received and noted. Councillor Healy has moved. Deputy Mayor has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Across the page, item 14.5, the Asparagus Fern Management Plan. We workshopped this last week. Firstly, I commend the very comprehensive survey and very comprehensive plan that Landcare put together. It's an excellent read. I learned a heap from it. And I know it'll help all King Islanders identify this pest more readily. and help us as a council to manage it on our verges as well, which we're signing ourselves up for as part of this management plan. So any questions or further discussion related to the plan is attached there in its entirety from pages 71 through to 113. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm delighted that the council's engaging with this because I'm fully aware of the problem of asparagus fern in the areas and how it's spreading. My question's related to the contributions, like, the commitments we've made, but we've said in brackets, as resources allow. Did we allocate any additional resources in our recent budget?
Through you, Jean.
Through the Mayor, there is an allocation in the budget to assist with weed control. So that's why it's carefully worded, that it's not a blank cheque, but we certainly have money in the operating budget for this sort of work.
Okay, and my follow-up budget is, look, good luck if we're actually fully effective and we knock out all the asparagus fern in those council-controlled areas in 12 months. Not sure if that's going to happen. So how are we going to actually review the effectiveness of these strategies that will help us inform whether we need to allocate more resources in the next budget period? Is we got a way of working out whether these strategies are working and what as councillors we will need to do?
Well, through the Mayor, the first thing I'd point out is that this is 2024 to 2034, so it's not a one-year plan. It will be ongoing. So we are working with Landcare in relation to how effective this is, and we'll monitor it as we go through those times. But there's no expectation that this will be all achieved in 1 year.
We'd anticipate an annual review. Councillor Layla might be able to fill us in.
But the question is feedback we can get and just working out whether the resources are adequate to really make any impression on the problem, or whether more resources we need, and trying to react sort of quickly rather than sort of wait till it's been reviewed 10 years later and we've worked out we haven't.
Councillor Layla, if you can answer that for us.
Some of the plan is actually around containment, because there is an actual understanding that it's out of control, unfortunately. So to be aware, it's not a total elimination plan. And Landcare, they're a very professionally run group and follow up regularly on all the projects that they're working on. There will most likely have been funding associated with this plan, and they will certainly have to equip the funding and do all the requisite work around that as well.
And we envisage at least an annual progress review, just to see how things are tracking and update any priority areas of interest or any outbreaks or any of that sort of thing. I imagine that will be coordinated and done at least on an annual basis by Landcare, which we'll certainly attend and be interested participants in.
And I think and then part of Landcare meeting regularly with council is an important way for that is occurring.
All right, any further discussions then or questions relating to this? If we're satisfied, would somebody like to move the recommendation on page 70 that we accept and support the plan? Councillor Laidler has moved. Councillor Green has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Over to page 114. Item 14.6, the Local Government Association of Tasmania voting proxy. This year, for some reason, LGAT in their wisdom has decided to split the LGAT AGM and the LGAT annual convention and split them by a month. Normally they run them together. So we can't be everywhere at once. We know how expensive and time consuming it can be to travel to and from Tassie, and they run these things in Hobart and Devonport, all sorts of places. So we just need another proxy just to cover ourselves for representation where I can't make it or whatever else, and so that's why we put this up. GM, anything else to add?
No, covered it.
I'll move it.
Okay, Councillor Cook has moved. A seconder? Councillor Bowden a second. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Across item 14.7, fees and charges, discussed at last week's workshop. For the most part, roundings up or down to make them dollar figures or whatever else, especially for the tip where people might have a pocket full of cash. So there's that aspect of it, and just tidying up a few other areas that we discussed at our workshop last week. Any councillors have any specific questions or further discussion relating to those Fees and charges amendments?
Only
Councillor
that
Hill?
there is, you can make card payment at the tip. There's a widely held misconception that they will only take cash. They do have a card operated machine.
Okay, yes, indeed. All right, somebody like to move the recommendation on page 120? Deputy Mayor has moved. Have a seconder. Councillor Cook has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.8, policy reviews, also discussed at the workshop last week. The updated policies are attached, pages 123 through to 137. Should all be familiar to us. Any further questions or discussion from councillors related to these updated policies? There being none, would somebody like to move the recommendation on page 122? Councillor Healy has moved. A seconder. Councillor Green has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Across the page, 138. Item 14.9. Policies that we are, rescission of policies, policies we are disposing of or replacing due to being obsolete. Again, discussed at last week's workshop. Any questions or discussion related to this? Somebody like to move the recommendation on page 139? Councillor Healy has moved. A seconder? Councillor Layla has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Across the page, 144. Where are we? Item 14.10, Community Assistance Program. No one needs to leave for this item. That's good, so we're good to crack on. It was a typo, as I understand it, last meeting around. We got the numbers in the wrong order. So it's this motion is to correct the amount to what it was originally supposed to be. Any questions? Somebody like to move the recommendation?
Yep.
Councillor Cook has moved. Councillor Green has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Over the page, across to page 148. 14.11, Community Assistance Program, Contingency Fund for Lions. So thanks, Councillor Layla. Councillor Layla done an absolute power of work with the Need for Feed organisation, along with Linda Payne and Heidi and the whole Lions team. That has just been amazing. So this agenda item is obviously Community Assistance Program sponsorship, retrospective for last Saturday night's in-kind support we provided so they could run the Need for Feed function on Saturday night, which was a considerable success, run at the showgrounds and the pavilion. Our council was actually presented with that display picture down there. You can see. It's the Need for Feed appreciation that was given to us as a council for all the things we've done. So that was nice. It was nice feedback, or a nice little memento that we weren't expecting. But it was an excellent activity last week, and the in-kind, a couple of the in-kind things have been amended, haven't they, and updated in line with the actuals. So it was just some last minute amendments and changes just because of the moving feast that was the large event that was being run. All right, so any questions or discussions?
I'll move to congratulate everybody involved. It's been a real blessing for the whole King Island and the farmers and the Lions.
Yeah, indeed.
And the shipping.
Absolutely. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Seconder? Councillor Green has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously, minus Councillor Layla.
We're going to go now.
Cross to page 155. We'll grab Serena back in.
Oh, thanks, Ira.
Serena, you're good to come back in.
If you are listening.
Yeah, Laura.
Item 15.1, closed council. That concludes all of our business in our ordinary council meeting. Would somebody like to move that we adjourn to closed council to consider the following items? Councillor Cook has moved. Do I have a seconder? The Deputy Mayor has seconded. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The ordinary meeting is adjourned. I thank the public for attending. We'll take a quick break and then reconvene. Thank you.